Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. Hello, and welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast. And today we have somebody who's a little bit kind of the non-traditional real estate agent. How many times do we have, the typical salesy agent? And there's, sometimes people that say, hey, I don't want to be sold anything. I don't want to work with a salesy type person. Well, our guest today, Barry, is your guy to work with. So we've got Barry Karch on here, and he is a real estate agent and broker in El Paso, Texas. And you've been in real estate for 35 years. And so your approach is much different. You are the broker for the real estate powerhouses, and you work with your wife, Tammy. So we'd love to hear kind of more how that dynamic works well. But, really, as far as your production level, for those folks that want to know, 90 to 100 houses a year, that's a really good clip. And primarily just doing it, with you and a couple others. So would love to hear more about you if you want to just dig in a little bit deeper and tell us more about you, Barry.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm really looking forward to being here. I never expected to find myself in the real estate field, to be honest with you. I've always thought I was a very, very unlikely realtor. And here I am 35 years later in the field. And I guess I'd have to say it's worked out pretty well. But just to go back in time, how I got here was I was kind of directionless as a kid in school. I was always a good student. I got all A's in my classes, so I could pretty much have done whatever I wanted to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. That was the problem. So I was, as I said, kind of directionless. I was really good with numbers. I probably would have been good at engineering or accounting or something like that. But nothing really reached out and grabbed me. And when I finished college, I went to UT Austin. When I finished, my parents were in the real estate field. They had a real estate company in El Paso. My plans were not to move back to El Paso. So I did stay in Austin. I loved Austin, going to school there. So I stayed in Austin for a year after college, and I did do real estate appraisals. So I did go into the real estate field because of my parents, and I didn't know what else I wanted to do. But in the back of my mind, I always thought my parents had done pretty well in real estate. I always thought that seemed like a pretty good opportunity. I guess I'll go ahead and try it. So it wasn't like I was destined for it or gung-ho for it. I just did it. So Tammy, my wife, and I moved over to El Paso after our first year of marriage, basically. And I joined up with my parents in the real estate field. And my father was a much, much different type of person than me. He was very domineering. He was a driver type personality. People were scared of him. He was very intimidating. People would be afraid to go into his office asking questions. They would go in shaking and come out crying. I mean, I'm not that way at all. I'm kind of soft-spoken, and I'm more, I guess, on the sensitive side. I care what people think and feel. And so he was my mentor, as different as we were when I first went into real estate. I had no idea what to do. And he would tell me, well, just say this or do that. And so I would try to be like him, but that didn't come naturally to me at all. So I had to kind of learn my own way through time. And I went into residential real estate. His company was basically investment properties also.
Okay.
He loved selling investment properties and property management. And I did some of that too, but I don't know why, but I just loved helping people buy houses and for themselves. So I kind of had to find my own way, not only to learn to sell houses, but also personality wise. Just being a quiet person. I'm an introverted type person. I'm certainly not your prototypical realtor. I always thought, like, if I was in a room with like 100 people, I would be the least likely person you ever think would be in real estate out of everybody in the whole room. I mean, not only that, you probably wouldn't even know I was in the room because I'm a quiet person. But strangely enough, over the years, I've found that worked to my advantage. Being quiet. I never tried to put on a salesy persona. I never tried to be someone else, someone that I'm not. A lot of the training when I first started was with scripts. Sales trainers in real estate at that time would give you a script, and they would say, if you're in this situation, here's what you say. and it never worked for me. I never really did it. I
Mhm.
just was always myself, and it just worked out. Basically, by being quieter and listening to people, it turned into an advantage rather than being a more aggressive, pushy salesperson. Because I don't know about you, but most people don't like being around pushy salespeople.
Mhm.
People have a bad impression of salespeople in general. So
Mhm.
I was not that. I was a quiet person. I would listen to my clients, and I would do my best to help them achieve their goals. And people ended up trusting me and being comfortable around me just because I didn't talk so much and make them feel uncomfortable. So that's kind of a somewhat long-winded answer for a quiet person here, but that's
Mhm.
how I got into real estate and where I'm at now.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. And I had a recent client that, they had communicated that too, where it's like, they don't want to be sold, and they were kind of deciding like who they were going to work with. They were actually kind of considering maybe selling, their house themselves. And I said, that's kind of what I'm here for, is to be your guide and be your voice of reason and talk you through these scenarios. But at the end of the day, it's your choice to make. And kind of going back to like what you said about the scripts, having been in real estate for now 6 years on the admin side and
Mm,
listening to our agents practice their scripts.
hmm.
What I tell people on my team is you just have to understand how to guide a conversation. And if you don't know what to say, ask a thoughtful question. Because they always say, selling isn't telling, selling is asking good questions, right? So if I could get you to realize or help you self-discover what it is you really want in your home. So if I'm consulting you on the buying side, I might just ask you various questions of what's important to you. What are your non-negotiables? What are the things that you can afford to live without? But I'll
Exactly.
ask you a lot of questions. I won't say like, oh, you should really buy this home because look at this, look at how nice it is. It's, well, tell me, what do you think about it? What do you think about the dining room? Is this dining room going to have enough room for your family? And so you can ask good questions to help them self-discover versus just jabbering at them to where they feel like
Exactly.
they're being sold a home, like, here's why you should buy this house because it's such an awesome house. No, they need to see that it's a fit. So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And I've always felt that a home is such a big ticket item. It's not something you can really sell.
Hmm.
People have to want it. You can't talk them into it because of the size of the purchase as
Hmm.
opposed to a smaller item. But you're right. Listening to what people say, what they want, um, asking good questions, but really listening to their answers rather than talking so much
Hmm.
makes them feel like you care about them and you have their best interest at heart.
Hmm.
And then they come to trust you
Hmm.
and they open up more to you, and it really works. So that's been what's worked for me is just I've become their trusted advisor basically by listening to them. And I think a good way of looking at it is it's more serving than selling.
Hmm. Yeah. So let's talk for a second about the early years as you're growing your business, because obviously for agents, that's the hard part, right? Years kind of 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Having people to understand, hey, I'm in a new industry now. I can actually help you even though I'm new. But then getting your name out there, there's so many people where it's just pound the phone, pound the phone, pound the phone. Everybody's got to know I'm a realtor now. I'm a realtor. Use me, use me, use me. Like, how does that work? So your approach, how did that work early on? How many years did it kind of take before you felt like, okay, I've I've made it, or like I've got enough coming in here where I feel good year after year? Walk through those early years for me.
Okay. Yeah. It really didn't take that long because although I may be on the introverted side and quieter, I'm
Hmm.
not afraid to follow up and
Hmm.
make phone calls or stay in touch with people. So
Yep.
in the early years, I would try a little bit of everything. And now bear in mind, as we said, I've been in real estate like 35, 36 years. So that was the Stone Age. I mean,
Right.
compared to now,
Yeah.
it
You
was
didn't have any
completely
internet
different.
leads back then?
There are no internet leads, no mobile phones, no nothing. So it was a completely different era on getting clients.
Now, were you
Um,
still in there when they had the MLS books?
Oh
Or no?
yeah, that's when
Okay.
I started. I
Yep.
had the books.
Yep.
So I'm back from that era with the books, the maps. We had the maps to find out where we're going when we drive around to houses.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm from the ancient times, but I have kept up with technology. Don't think I'm still a dinosaur here, but that's how it was when I started.
Mm-hmm.
So I just tried a little bit of everything. I mean, back the traditional methods from way back when. I would do open houses, although I never liked them, never good at them, because I
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't so great at greeting people at the door and making small talk. That wasn't my strength.
Right.
But I would do that. I would, I guess, the traditional things, expired listings. Are you familiar with that? I would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just various ways to reach out to people. But I was always afraid to, I was not afraid to call them. I wasn't so much afraid of rejection. I never took it that personally. People don't know me personally if I'm calling or following up on them. Like if they came to an open house, I would just, but I would basically see how I could serve them. I would say, just wanted to check back in with you and see what I can do to help or what else I can do for you. Something very easy, low key like that. That's all I would ever ask. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't try to talk him into anything. So most people were very pleasant and it was all fine. But I think the key was in the follow up. But really, things started out fairly quickly. I think I did fairly okay my first few years. I wasn't starving or anything. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Well, and I think kind of going back to the rejection piece, um, depending on your personality, either it hits you stronger or not. But just remember, I think sometimes agents like to think that they're the center of everybody's universe, and if somebody doesn't call you back, that doesn't mean that they saw your voicemail and it's like, oh, Mike called me again. I'm going to purposefully choose to ignore him and not call him back right now. It's no, you're busy. I mean, there's voicemails that I have on my phone from people that have reached out to me and I haven't returned them because you're constantly balancing you're balancing your time and your focus, right? So if somebody's called me and left a voicemail that I haven't returned, now these aren't like, hey, I want to look at a home tomorrow, and I'm like, nope, we're not going to go look at
yeah,
a home. I mean,
yeah,
you're balancing, like there's people that maybe a business decision that I need to make a month from now, somebody's reaching out to me to ask about it. I'm not ready to make that decision yet, or I'm not ready to think about that yet. That doesn't mean that I don't like them or that I'm purposely choosing not to call them back. It's I'm looking at, okay, what's on my to-do list today, or what's on my priority list here this week, and returning that call or having a hour-long conversation with that person just doesn't fit in right now. But that doesn't mean that 2 or 3 weeks from now, they might not be very important, and similarly too, a client that we just helped them sell their house, we kind of went back and forth every couple of days, trying to figure out timeline. Well, all of a sudden the week before, you better believe I'm responding to every text as soon as possible or every call. And my seller's doing the exact same thing because we've just raised up the priority list because now it's more important for us to get back in touch with people. So I think, for realtors, just give yourself a little bit of slack. It's not that they wouldn't choose you or don't want to choose you or actively not choosing you. It's that you're just not in their scope of their priority right now. They have jobs, they may have kids, other commitments, other things they're working on, and calling you back 2 hours after you left them a voicemail just isn't in their priority. So don't take it personal. Just realize you're just not in their priority right now. But that doesn't mean next week, hey, we want to sell our house. Now, boom, all of a sudden you're the top of the priority, right?
exactly. I remember I heard a sales trainer once say, no one's ever sitting around their house saying, now would be the perfect time for a realtor to call me. No one's ever just sitting there waiting for you to call them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't take it personally. And one thing I found interesting is, like I said, I've been good on follow up, but if warm leads, people that have inquired or reached out at one time, I'll follow up, and I'll call people sometimes I'll follow up for a year or more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not pestering them. I might call once a month if it's like not a lukewarm lead, just to follow up. And what strikes me as kind of interesting a lot of times is I might have called someone for 10, 11 months. They never answer, never return a call. Then all of a sudden I get them one time,
Mm-hmm.
and they act like they never heard from me before. Like, oh, like I never knew I even called or attempted to reach them before. Like it was the first time I ever tried. So
Yeah.
again, you don't know. You just can't take it personally. Just follow up low key again, just to see how you can help them. Just checking in with you, see anything I can do to help. That's it. To see how you can serve them. But yeah, don't assume that they've heard your messages or anything.
Yeah. And one of the analogies that we've used on our team too is, you want to have as many fishing lines in the water as you can. So when you're following up with somebody, yeah, you don't need them to buy or sell with you today. You just need to be the person that they do reach out to, or they respond to when they are ready to buy or sell. So yeah, so you following up, whether it's a check-in email, whether it's a text just to see how they're doing, or whether it's a phone call, you're just reminding them like, hey, I'm your guy. And so when it does become a priority, now you have those fishing lines in the water, and you don't have to be pushy to do that. You're just following up, and I think that's where the more traditional salesperson struggles, is in the follow-up, right? Because they're chasing the shiny pennies all the time, and they just forget to follow up with people. That's where, my background of having some systems in place is helpful, because it's like that can help people to fall through the cracks. We tell our team, our goal is not to have people fall through the cracks. The way you do that is through follow-up, and through systems, to make sure that you don't forget about people. And that's where, when you're the type of person that really does care about people, you're following up with them because you want to help, you want to care. It's not because you have to,
Exactly. And back to being on the introvert side, or the quieter person, that's one of the strengths of the introverts, are being very organized, detail oriented, and following up. So that's what I'm good at. But like you said, you need to have a pipeline of clients. So if people want to buy today or this month, great. But if they want to buy a year from now, that's okay too, because before you know it, a year will be here, and we need income a year from now also. So when people tell me, or somebody tell me up front, I'm not going to buy for a year or so, I'm like, that's fine, I'll be here. I mean, there's no rush, no pressure. And as far as follow-up goes, I recommend a variety of methods too. I don't do it all by phone call. I do like phone. Maybe I'm old-fashioned that way, but I do like phone a lot, because unlike text, you don't get the person's tone in text, so you don't know how they meant it. Sometimes you might take things wrong,
right?
And also you can have a better conversation. But I do phone, I do text. I do email, as you mentioned. And then I also like video text. If nothing else, then I'll send a video of myself talking to them. And people will usually look at that. They get a video text like, who is this guy? So they'll at least listen to it. So I tried various methods of following up.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And that's wonderful. And that's how your business grows year over year. So you right now, you said you're doing about 85 to 90 transactions a year. Has that been pretty consistent over the last 5, 10, 15 years, or have you had some ups and downs? I'm just kind of curious from a volume and management standpoint. Maybe talk about that and how you and your wife have handled that.
Okay. Yeah, it's gone pretty much up. I'm trying to think, it's going back a while. We had some years that will go up and then down a little bit, but really in the last 10, 15 years, it's been pretty consistent. Once we got things figured out and got our systems and everything down. So it's my wife and I, and then we've taken on we currently have one business partner who helps out a lot. And I know you talk about achieving location freedom through real estate. She's helped us achieve that a lot, because now we do travel a lot and go out of town a lot. And when we're not in town, she helps with the legwork and doing stuff. I can do so much now on a computer and through the internet and the phone. So I don't have to be present a lot, but sometimes you do need to be there. And she does the legwork, which allows us to have a lot of location freedom through real estate.
Now, is your are your wife and your business partner, are they also licensed? Are they doing agent related stuff, or is it more admin side stuff, or kind
They're
of
both
everything?
licensed. They're both licensed. So they do agent related stuff.
Okay. Are you splitting up kind of listing side, buyer side, or what does your balance look like for your transactions?
We don't, between my wife and myself, we really don't split them up. We work, it depends on I guess, our each individual spheres of influence.
Mm-hmm.
Leads that I generate or people that I know, I will generally work with, and same for her.
Mm-hmm.
We don't usually work together, even though we're a team. We rarely work together with the same people.
Mm-hmm.
She'll work with her sphere, I'll work with my sphere. And
Yeah.
that's basically how we split it up.
Yeah. Well, and that's plugging along at a good clip, because 85, 90 transactions, that's, seven, 8 a month. So you're doing a good amount there. You're staying busy, but because you've been doing it for so long, for somebody new in real estate, we always talk about how much you actively have to think, think about stuff, because it's not second nature yet. And having been in the business as long as you have, there's things that you just because you haven't had to actively think about them as hard. And that's how you can be so successful and manage a closing load like that, because you just know how to do it well.
Yeah, I think over the years we just become more efficient because although every transaction is different and different things happen all the time, the general process, we stay on top of it, and we try to anticipate problems or questions and stay in front of it. So I can do things a lot faster than a new person can. It doesn't take me as long to do anything. So we can just be more efficient, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. So you're working with your people, your wife's working with her people, and then your business partner, is she also actively working with clients too?
She works with some of her clients. Those are kind of separate away from our team. They're not. She does her own thing a little bit, but with our clients, she works as a transaction coordinator, and she does some showings for us. Goes on some appointments if we're not in town. So she fills in when we're not there for both of us.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about, you'd mentioned kind of location freedom, being able to travel a little bit. I think that's one of the hard things for realtors is some realtors joke about, that a realtor will never retire. And it's usually for two reasons. One is they genuinely love it so much, and it's just a part of who they are, that they like doing it. But then the other part is maybe the agent that hasn't thought ahead financially or planned for things, and they might have to work all the way up until the day they die. So talk a little bit about, now as you've been experienced, you've got some years under your belt, being able to kind of pick and choose a little bit more versus, earlier on when you kind of had to work with everybody because you needed the money.
Yeah, early on, you're absolutely right. When we needed the money, work was always top priority. And there were a few times we canceled trips out of town because a buyer was coming in town and we couldn't leave. We had to be there for the sale. And you know what? Those things usually never worked out, which was the most frustrating part. They come in town or they cancel their trip and they never end up buying a house. So we lost our planned trip and nothing positive came of it. But as we gotten further into the business, we've managed to save some money over the years and do some investing in real estate and also in the stock market. So we do have investment income coming in to supplement what we sell now. So we're at a point where we're not as pressed to have to sell as much. So kind of changing my priorities a little bit, where life and life experiences come first now instead of business. Yes, I still want to do business well and provide everybody with excellent service, but that's why we have our business partner with us. But I try to prioritize things a little differently at this point in my career.
Let's talk about the investments a little bit. How did that come to be, and how did that grow for you?
Yeah, I was slow in this too. I've been kind of a slow learner in everything. I should have been investing from the beginning of my real estate career, but I kind of didn't. Don't ask me why. I guess it just wasn't important to me when I was in my 20s and starting out as I should have. But I did start investing later on, which is at least better than nothing at all. When I started investing, I've always bought single family homes just because I think they're easier to resell than multifamily if we should ever want to dispose of the property.
Right.
And my criteria might be a little different than some people's, but when I buy properties, I always wanted to buy something that I wouldn't mind living in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it has to be a luxury, great property,
Right.
but it has to be at least in a nice neighborhood and at least a decent middle class home.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I judge them. I figure if I wouldn't mind living in it, then other people wouldn't mind renting it either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I've gone for as far as that goes. In my real estate sales career, I became affiliated with Dave Ramsey. You're familiar with? Yeah,
Yep.
most
ELP.
Yeah, I became an ELP. I was an ELP with Dave for several years, which I really enjoyed. Someone had recommended the program to me. I never really thought about it on my own. But and then as I became an ELP, I read his books and listened to his podcast and kind of became indoctrinated in his way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So I've approached real estate investment maybe a little different than some other people is. I'm more of the Dave Ramsey approach, debt free.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wasn't always that way. When I was younger, I would buy homes with like 20% down investor
Yep.
loans. But later on in my career, as I was able to save more money, then I've gone the Dave Ramsey approach where I've got stuff debt free now, which takes a lot of pressure off. Also, if a
Sure
home is
does.
empty, you don't have to worry about making mortgage payments and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done.
Yeah. Well, and then it's more true cash flow here too, because you're able to, you can hold fewer properties, and then you're also not worried too about, if there's some sort of, cooling off, the market's going up, 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 and everybody's kind of wondering like, what's going to flip here? Is something going to change in the market? And you don't have to worry about that because you're not going to be underwater when you don't have a mortgage. So
yeah, exactly. Or occasionally rents will go down.
Yeah.
In the past, and we've had our lower rents, but at least there's always some rent we can rent the house for. That there's always some that it will rent for. It was always some rate it will rent for, and
Right.
it's still going to be positive cash flow.
Right. You're never going to be
without the
over
mortgage.
leveraged. Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah.
we weren't always that way, like I said, when we started out, but that's where we're at now. And, if it works for us, I know there's different strokes for different folks, but that's what we've enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Where, what do you like to do in your free time then, in terms of, traveling? Where do you like to go, or how do you like to spend that time now that you get to choose a little bit more of how you spend it?
Well, we love sports. We like going to sporting events. I love music. I love going to concerts. So we'll travel for sporting events, concerts, and we just like going. El Paso's in the middle of the desert. There's
Yep.
sand all around us, so we love going to water.
Yep.
We love going anywhere, an island or anywhere with the water. I love seeing water. To get out of the desert every now and then. So that's what we
Mhm.
like to do.
What sports do you enjoy?
We love football and basketball. Those are our favorites.
Okay.
So
What teams?
San Antonio Spurs,
Spurs,
Texas
yep.
Longhorns.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose, being Austin, a UT Austin grad, of course.
Dallas Cowboys. So
Yep.
we're all the Texas teams. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. I'm a sports fan myself. So for those that can see the video, I've got a bunch of sports memorabilia behind me. So
I see that.
we're obviously Minnesota sports. And so I always say, for better or worse, most often it's for worse. It is what it is, but, yeah. So, well, good. That's great. Well, I really enjoy you sharing because, like we talked about ahead of time, I want to show people that you don't have to fit a certain mold. You don't have to fit a certain stereotype to be successful in real estate. And whether it's an agent or an admin or an investor or other roles, you can find a way to plug into real estate. I tell people it's this entrepreneurial playground, right? Where you can do so many things. If you want to be an agent, great. If you want to be an investor, great. If you want to start some other business, if you like technology and you want to create a technology to support agents, you can do that. So there's so many different ways that you can be successful in real estate. And I really enjoy you and being able to highlight how you don't have to be the stereotypical, pushy salesperson type agent, and you can have a really successful career, a long career, and, kind of design a life that you want to live later on because you've been diligent with follow-up. You care about people. You truly want to help them, versus just feel like you have to make a sale. So, any parting words of wisdom that you have for people that are maybe in your shoes, in kind of my shoes too, where you're kind of like, well, I'm not that typical salesy type person, but I do really love real estate.
Yeah. Strangely enough, I've found out that being unsalesy is the key to sales success. People, people don't like being around salesy, pushy people. So if you just truly put your client's interest first and try to serve them rather than sell them, then things are going to work out well. So being unsalesy is good. Being an introvert is good. And another strange thing I've come to find over the years is the majority of the top realtors are introverts. Not what you might expect, but introverts do very well in real estate. So if you're not a salesy person or introvert, you're perfect for real estate.
Yeah. Well, and I even think too, like, they like people that you see on stage a lot of times too, if they're at a convention or an event, there's a lot of people that are introverts that love doing that because, as an internal processor, like I think so much about what I'm going to say. And I kind of give the analogy of it's like the iceberg, right? Like before I talk, there's the 80% of the iceberg below the surface where I've thought about it. I was a finance major. So it's like, I've analyzed it. There's a reason for me speaking, where a lot of times, people that are, a high I personality, they process by talking. It's how they get to their conclusion. It's like, I've already made my conclusion and now I'm telling you about it, and so even being up on stage, I'm not concerned talking to a large group of people because it's like I've thought about it all in here, and so even people that are up on stage a lot of times are introverts as well. So so I just love highlighting different people and different stories, and so thank you so much, Barry, for sharing. For those folks that your story here has resonated with them, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, I recently created a podcast for unsalesy realtors or introverted realtors, because I noticed there's a lot of them. And I just want to encourage people that you can be successful being that way in real estate. So the podcast is called the Real Estate Unsalesperson. So you can check that out. And my website is therealestateunsalesperson.com. So those are places to check that out.
Wonderful. And I totally forgot to mention that when I introduced you, that I was going to mention your podcast. So absolutely. And good stuff on there. I really like it. So, so reach out to Barry, listen to his podcast, a lot of great information. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.